The next question we were going to ask anyway, which relates to what you just said, Jason, was the dominant part of the team, which is the defense. Now, Jim Schwartz interviewed for the head coaching job yesterday. They're obviously going to conduct more interviews over the course of the next couple of weeks. G, in your mind, if the Browns decide to hire someone not named Jim Schwartz, should it be a requisite requirement for this new head coach to keep Jim Schwartz on as his defensive coordinator? Should that be something that Andrew Berry is essentially establishing in the interview with new head coach, that, hey, you have control over a lot of things, but we cannot lose Jim Schwartz?
See how many nuggets do that? It was a setup question. That was a crazy question. Obviously, that's not the way you should conduct your business. So if you're a head coach and you are coming in, you have, and I've been, and look at here, I've been on the record and I've been saying this correctly. If you're the new head coach, you should have a right to come in, evaluate every quarterback on the roster, and make your decision as you see fit based upon what your evaluation is and how you want to move, because you're the new head coach. Nobody brings somebody else in and says and handcuffs them to whatever positions. I always compare this like this. Gordon Ramsay does this a lot. I watch him, Gordon Ramsay, John Taffer, Bar Rescue. Everybody got a restaurant. They're running around here. The restaurant is in the red. You borrowed $100,000 from your mom. She done retired. They about to foreclose on the business. Your menu trash. You got clean problems. The health department in it every other week, and your menu is garbage. But you bring in John Taffer. You bring in Gordon Ramsay and say, help me fix my business. Mm-hmm. The first thing they do is come in and say, the sign is terrible. We don't like the name. It's dated in here.
And they find maggots in your fridge and they yell at you.
Yeah, and they yell at you. And then you be like, but we can't take my meatloaf off of the menu. People love that. They're like, if people loved your menu so much, people would be up in here buying it. But you called me. So if you are saying that you want a different direction, you can't bring somebody else in, say, fix my problem, but then not give them the tools and the wherewithal to pick who they want on their staff. So, no. Jim Schwartz, I would like to keep Jim Schwartz. And if the guy they bring in believes that, that's the guy he would like to, run the defense, that's cool. But if not, so be it. He's not going to be on the roster. You made the decision. So, I feel like, he should have a free reign to build the thing as he see fit, or don't hire him. Don't hire a guy that if you want him to be something that he's not, just don't hire him, right? If you want a yes dude.
I agree with everything you said. I think it does speak volumes to Jim Schwartz, though, that could be a thing, like where the organization. If that's the case, you should just hire him as a head coach, because
if you care that much.
Yeah, if you want him here that much and you want to guarantee that he's here, just hire him as the head coach. That's why I keep saying that he probably gonna end up being the head coach here. But yeah, you can't come in and dictate, because what if I know somebody that I know can get better out of Myles Garrett? I know it's hard to believe that somebody can get a more productive season out of Myles Garrett, but what if the dude that I know from back when I played here or worked here, he was a really good DC and I really want to hire him? Like, I'm going to hire that guy over Jim Schwartz. I just think it's hard to retain people, especially somebody who's had such an impact that Jim Schwartz has. Like, to me, the players would be kind of conflicted a little bit, because it's like, you this new dude, Jim Schwartz been here. Like, if Jim Schwartz tell me to do something, I'm gonna do it, because like he been here. Like, you know what I'm saying? We got that bond. You new here on the block. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think, like, you can't have somebody that powerful and that good, like, that's that good with the players, because you don't know what his messaging is behind your back. And I feel like players would then lean to him. So I just think you would have to clear it.
In Seattle, did you guys have the same defensive coordinator the whole time?
I was in Seattle for 2 years and we had the same D coordinator.
So them personalities. Yeah. If, say for instance, they got a new defensive coordinator, how you think Earl and Cam and Sherman would take that? Like, would
they were more of the we got this. We know what we do.
So they're running their own program?
Pretty much.
So they're just running...
Because what happened was, so K. Rich, Chris Richard was the DC when I was there, but Chris Richard was the DB coach before I got there. Mm-hmm. I forget, they had Dan Quinn was the DC. Dan Quinn became the head coach at Atlanta. So they promoted K. Rich from DB coach to D coordinator.
Okay.
So K. Rich ended up leaving the room. They hired Andre Curtis. Shout out to Coach Dre. But K. Rich still would pop in the DB room from time to time. Now Coach Dre was good and all that, but like at the end of the day, like what was he gonna tell Earl, Cam, and Sherm? Like it's the same defense. K. Rich is the D coordinator, so he's kind of still running the show. So like what I'm saying, like
There's levels to
like
it.
Coach Dre was there. Like Coach Dre was good for me because I was a young guy coming in and getting me up to speed. But like he really didn't have to say too much to Cam, Earl, and Sherm because they knew it already.
Not only should keeping Jim as the DC not be a must, if it is a must, you have the wrong head coach. Because no head coach worth his salt should come in and start taking orders from the GM of who his staff is going to be. You got the wrong guy. If you got a guy who will agree without even meeting with Jim, if you got a guy who will sign the contract without even any discussions, you've got the wrong guy.
Well, that's probably, that's why I say you should just hire him as the head coach.
And so I'll go back to the positive text, right, from the NFL coach I was talking to this week.
Is that guy available?
No.
Okay.
No.
He's happily married.
Happily married. This is what he said about Jim as the head coach. It's one guy, right? It's one guy. But he's working in the NFL. He's a coach in the NFL. I would move on from Jim because you need the culture reset, although he did an awesome job. I would not consider Schwartz. I think he's an outstanding coach, but it's a horrible idea to me to hire a guy that was part of the last regime that would be totally bat bleep crazy and dumb. Stefanski is an elite coach. You needed something fresh. That's fine. But bringing in someone that has learned in theory under him is crazy, or part of the culture with no time in between is totally crazy.
You know who said something like that?
Who?
Me.
We did this topic yesterday. Does it make any sense to promote somebody from a staff?
Oh, really?
What did I-
You just
wait
fired
a minute.
the head coach from because they didn't have enough success.
Wait a minute.
And Tyvus literally
Walked through the door.
said that again.
I walked through the door and I heard McNuggets saying, "What was you asking? You was asking something about promoting from, or should they give it to Tommy Reese or
I was setting up the
Jim
topic because I
Schwartz?"
was waiting to see if there's any coaching news before the show because I didn't want to make a topic then have to readjust. So
And
I was
I-
talking to Bull and said, hey, the topic we're going to do is, does it make any sense to promote from within after you just fired the head coach for not having enough success? And Tyvus was walking to the bathroom before he sat down and goes, quote, oh, hell no.
No,
End quote.
Because it don't make sense.
No,
You're not about to fire somebody and then hire somebody who was just in that bad regime. Like, it don't make sense
Well,
to me.
let me ask you a question. If, say, for
But I still say he gonna win on that list though.
if you last year, say they moved on from Stefanski at the end of the year, right? And they said at the end of last year, and they said, you know what? We moved on a year early. He may have turned it around, but we feel like we got somebody in the building that was going to do it, and they hired Mike Vrabel. Would you still say the same thing? Because Mike Vrabel was in the building.
That's different.
Why?
Because Mike Vrabel was here for a year, and
He was a consultant. He was screwing around.
Yeah.
So you feel like he wasn't
didn't have a real role.
He wasn't
Exactly.
truly
He was hanging out.
He wasn't truly invested. Now he did have to take over the offensive line though.
Which is wild.
This is crazy.
He was the de facto offensive line
This man
coach.
really was stealing money. Like so not only do players steal, coaches steal too. That's crazy.
Now,
They just be
I'm
giving
trying to
this
look it
money
up real
away.
quick.
Let me steal a couple dollars.
But there has to be. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. In this instance, I agree. But there's got to be, like Marty Schottenheimer, going way back, was the interim coach or was on Retigliano's staff, I think,
Yeah.
and was promoted. And that's just off the top of my head. I'm sure because a lot of interims get the job and then they get fired a year or two later.
Didn't G-Dub do well when he was?
Yeah, and you know when they interviewed him for the job, New Year's Day morning. I'm like,
remember that.
that is not a serious candidate. If you're going in at 9 a.m. on January 1st for a job interview, you are not a serious candidate. That is let's just get this out of the way and send you on.
When you
your way.
hire an interim, very seldomly does it work. The interim usually, if you say like, all right, he's going to finish the season as interim, then you give him 1 year, it's not going to work, and then you
the
fire
Raiders
him.
just did that. Who was the Raiders?
Antonio Pierce.
Yes, they gave him the job and then they fired him like a year later.
Jeff Saturday the coach for the Colts?
that was
for like-
insane. That was totally insane.
I've never seen that happen in my life, ever in my life.
Yeah.
How do you? Well, so okay. So I'm thinking of from a hierarchy situation. So when you look at the priority of the coach, if you looking at it, what do you prioritize the most? Like, do you prioritize his ideology, of whether it's an offensive coach or a defensive coach? Or do you prioritize that he has to have some experience, a previous experience as a head coach? Mm-hmm. And so if the only reason I'm looking at Schwartz is it different is because I'm looking at these other names and I'm like, man, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about a first-time defensive head coach.
You fear the unknown.
Yeah, and
Kevin was a first-time head coach and he went to the playoffs.
But do you want? But if you, but like Jason said you wanted to move to something opposite of what you was getting from Stefanski, right? Mm-hmm. So if I want something opposite of what Stefanski is. I would expect that you would get a dude who's a little more of a player's coach and has some level of experience working with.
You don't think Kevin's a player's coach?
In terms of,
I think that was his downfall.
In terms of his communication style, like he's not outwardly communicative, like, you know what I'm saying?
He was with the team, the team.
Outwardly, like
not to the public.
Yeah, like,
he's not going to get in guys' faces. I do think that there was accountability issues at times.
At times.
I think the offensive.
Jason, they led the league in pre-snap penalties for like 2 years, and they led the league in turnovers.
I mean,
there was no accountability.
I mean, some of the off-field stuff too. I think there was a lack of accountability at times. I think the offensive guys really like Kevin. I think the defensive guys did not. I've said that during the season.
Yeah.
That a lot of defensive guys had turned on him. That's not really a surprise.
When you turn on to somebody, if you out there got the number one defense and you can't get a drop of offense, I'd be mad at the play caller too.
Yeah.
Well, do you believe? Would you take a more? Would you lean towards an offensive head coach or a defensive head coach?
This is going to sound like a cop out. It really comes down to the guy. I don't think it matters. I don't think that side of the ball. Because for a while, the thought was, make your coach a young offensive mind, because otherwise you're going to lose them. Like if you have a good offensive coordinator, you're going to lose them to a head coach elsewhere. And defense has swung far so back the last couple of years that I don't think you should get hung up. I think they're going to wind up with a young offensive mind. That's just a hunch. That's just an opinion. There's no reporting behind that.
Real quick, this is just an exercise.
Yeah.
Robert Saleh.
The NFL playoff team. Real quick, the NFL
But
playoff
the defensive
teams right
coaches, there's a lot more candidates on the defensive side than the offensive side. Go ahead.
Look at the playoff matchups. The Rams versus the Panthers. McVay, obviously not young necessarily anymore, but he was a first-time offensive head coach.
Yeah.
Canales in Carolina, first-time offensive head coach. Green Bay, LaFleur, this is his first NFL head coaching job, right?
Yes.
He didn't coach anyway. Offensive-minded head coach. Chicago, Ben Johnson, first job, offensive-minded head coach. Buffalo, McDermott's a defensive guy, first-time head coach, right? He never coached anywhere before.
No.
Jacksonville, Liam Cohen, first-time head coach, offensive guy. San Francisco, Shanahan, first-time NFL head coach, offensive guy. Versus Sirianni, first-time head coach, offensive guy. Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, not his first go-around.
I don't even know what you.
I don't even know what he is.
Yeah, he's been around for so long.
Harbaugh is he's just one of those. He's a football coach.
He's a football coach, yeah. Against Vrabel, who I think is more defensive, but he's more
He's a
just a
football
CEO
coach.
type.
He's more defensive.
Yeah,
And then you have Houston versus Pittsburgh, which is D'Amico Ryan's first-time head coach.
Defense.
Mike Tomlin, first-time head coach, defensive guy. So when you look at the splits, you have Rams, Carolina, Green Bay, Chicago, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Philadelphia. 7 of the 14 teams have their first job. Tomlin obviously not new, but offensive coaches. You have D'Amico Ryans. You have McDermott as your two.
Vrabel.
We want to count Vrabel as defense or more CEO?
He's defense. He's
Vrabel,
defense.
and then Tomlin technically as your 4 CEOs.
Yeah.
And then you have Jim Harbaugh as your outlier. So relatively even split offensive, defensive.
I saw something the other day because I made the case, I think Monday, that I would like to see guys get the chance to learn from their mistakes and get a second opportunity.
Yeah.
I saw something that said the data is not good on guys second time around, but I didn't see what it was. Like it was like a headline and I didn't bother to click on it. I still think that there are things that, like, you should get the opportunity to learn. That didn't go so well. I probably shouldn't have done that. I really like that. We should lean into that and do more of that. I don't see the harm in giving guys a second opportunity. I don't know about third and fourth, but certainly a second chance.
I'm big on.
So with that being said, why, if you know this could potentially be your last chance as a head coach,
why would you come here?
Yeah.
Because it will pay you generational
Will you
money.
stop?
I'm serious. No, that's a huge deal.
Hey, that's huge.
Tyvis, if I offered you $25 million right now to sit in a bag of crap
Yeah. Let's
2 years.
Let's do it.
That's not helping us get to where we're supposed to go.
But that's human nature.
But that's the mentality.
So what are we doing?
Plus every
so why are we even doing? Just hire somebody. Just hire an interim.
But
until you figure it out. Until you get money.
But if you're a young coordinator, you think I can turn it around.
Yeah.
I can turn it around.
If you're a first time guy, yeah.
But if you're a second time guy,
you're a second time. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, if this is my last shot to ever be a head coach, why would I do this?
If nobody else wants you,
man, boy, listen, man.
Which is not a great.
They really ain't gonna want you after this.
Everybody, but you supposed to believe him.
I understand.
Yes.
You supposed to at all costs.
I understand everything y'all saying, and I agree with what y'all saying. I also think I feel like you're being set up to fail. That's just how I look at it. You're being set up to fail.
So here's the thing. If say for instance, and I'm just using this just because of your experience in the NFL. If you saying you ain't got the call, right? Think about this. This is wild. How old is you now?
31.
You 31.
I'm eligible.
So you
need the interim.
Eligible. Now you got. So let me just give you. You work here. You got your own radio show. You work for the Big Ten Network. You work for the Browns Radio Network. Bro, you got about 75 different irons in the fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Your family is expanding and growing.
If you hire me as the head coach, I'm going to continue to do all 75 of them.
If somebody called you on the phone and say, Tyvis, we want you to come out here and try out, what would you say?
Football?
Yes, football. Try out.
What we talking about? We talking practice squad? Or
No. We said, yo, we're going to bring you in.
What league are we talking
This is the NFL.
Yes, I'm going out to the trial.
Now here's the thing. Why you straight now? You making a good living. You got your family is secure. Mm-hmm. The hours, you ain't got to put your body through that. Why would you take that job and then have to quit all the doing this other stuff?
Because I would do it for the 6-year-old kid that said he wanted to play in the NFL.
There it is. So the 6-year-old coach, the coach that watched his whole life, his father wanted to see him do it. His father like 70, 80 now. Guess what? You look at your kids. Why you think all them quarterbacks got their whole family up there? Phillip Rivers and the Flaccos.
Phillip Rivers got his grandkids up there.
They just want to see you do it on the sideline with the headset one more time. Listen, you don't even feel like being at home no more anyway. Be truthful. It's after you go to the practices, bro, you would do it because it's in your blood.
I understand all of that. Do you agree that they're being set up to fail?
What I would say is I agree that the
because
deck is different.
Next year you're not.
The deck is different.
The year after that you have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or
that's one deck, but that's the not for long aspect of the NFL.
So what was the point?
So the point.
The $30 million you're cashing was the point.
That's fine.
That bag.
That's fine.
The bag
but for the rest of your career now, even if you're a first-time guy, they're gonna say, that's the guy that went to Cleveland.
But you know what? And I'll take those $100 bills and I'll bathe myself in them.
No guts, no glory.
All that sound good.
If you are the guy,
you hear your name being slandered for the rest of your life about how you ain't no good of a
ain't
coach.
Ain't nothing for the rest of your life. This world moves so fast.
How many head coaches left the Cleveland Browns and got another head coaching job?
Chudzinski anymore?
Yeah, nobody talks about Pat Shermer and Rob Chudzinski and Greg Williams and Hugh Jackson. I mean, Hugh still is the punchline.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It's hard to run for 131.
We say Mike Pettin might have been a good head coach. Like, he still has at least the lore that he could have done something outside of Cleveland.
And then Pettin decided to ride off into the sunset. He was like, I
want these guys because they may never see a head coaching opportunity again.
He just broke that man.
He's just like, yeah, I'm good.
Johnny Manziel broke Mike Pettin.
He got that